Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be able to introduce Anant AGARWAL, who is Professor of Electrical Engineering and Computer Science at MIT. He's the founder and CEO of edX, an online learning platform that's reached the masses, created by Harvard and MIT. He founded edX 7 years ago. The aim is to provide global access to high-quality education to learners everywhere, all kinds of learners, and at scale. He's going to be telling us quite a bit more about this in some detail, I think, in a few minutes. But I imagine actually probably everybody here knows somebody who's studied a MOOC, or maybe some of you have actually studied a MOOC yourselves, a massive open online course. Professor AGARWAL has had a very distinguished career. He's won multiple awards, and remarkably in sort of several different areas, it seems. He's won a prize for his pioneering work in computer architecture, MIT prizes for teaching, a prize for higher education, and the Padma Shri Award, one of the highest civilian awards in India. His work on organic computing was chosen in 2011 by Scientific American as one of 10 world-changing ideas, which is quite an impressive accolade. The following year, he was named in Forbes' top 15 education innovators. So we can see the kind of speaker we're having coming up very shortly. It was disappointing, though, to hear that your Guinness Book World Record for the largest microphone array, which you held for 14 years, was beaten last year by a Dutch team. But I feel maybe perhaps your recent achievements are, a little more notable anyway, so we'll gloss over that. We want to congratulate you warmly on these achievements and for winning the prize, and very much looking forward to what you have to say. First, we have a 50-second video, I believe. So I'll leave you right with that.
A lot of people don't even know that a high-quality education is available at the click of a mouse. We want to use the prize money to launch the radical new efforts that will enable much younger learners, both at the late high school and college level, to get radically increased access and quality for their learning. Thank you very much, Charles Yidan, Emeritus Vice Chancellor, Larry Hedges, colleagues. I'm really delighted to have this conversation with you. And as is my usual practice, I like to say very many controversial things so that we can have a spirited discussion later. In this discussion, I'm going to talk about reimagining education. And I think few people would argue that education needs reimagining. And it kind of scares me to say this at Cambridge. I crack jokes that education hasn't changed dramatically in quality or in terms of quantity in centuries, but I got to really watch saying that here in Cambridge. You were established in 1208. In the US, if you're 100 years old, you're historical, but you have to watch that in the UK. Education is a human right. I think few would argue that this is a human right. But do we take the time to think about what does it mean for something to be a human right? To me, when someone says something's a human right, it means that everybody should have access to it. It's very simple. Everyone should have access to it like the air we breathe. But have you given a thought to the kinds of things we do in education that completely belies the notion that it's a human right? Let me give you a simple example. A human right means that everybody should have access to it like the air we breathe. Okay, so everybody take a breath. Okay? I'll have access to it. But let me give you one example of all of us do. So I've been teaching at MIT for 32 years. I've been doing admissions at MIT, both at the graduate level and undergraduate level. And we pride ourselves on the fact that we admit just 5% of the people that apply. I did my undergraduate education in IIT Madras. Anybody here from IIT? There, they pride themselves on 1% of the students that apply, 1 in 100. And there are stories of students that said that they could not get into IIT, and so they went to Cornell or something like that. You know, there's a story of a student. So it's scary. But we take these stories for granted. But just imagine, let me give you an analogy. So let's say I'm a village in India, and this village has a well. Okay, so water, you would argue that clean water is a human right. Close enough? So let's say there's a well, and there's a big pug who stands there. Oh, sorry. My bad. I like to move around, so I'll stand here. So there's a big well in this village, and that's okay. This will work. Big well in this village, and this big thug stands protecting the water from the well. And there's a long line of people that are standing there waiting to get water from the well. The first person comes up, and this thug says, all right, what are your SAT scores? Okay. Let's see, what's your parents' median income? What are your high school scores? Show me your recommendation letters. Show me your essays. Okay, sorry, no water. And you turn away 95 people before you let someone in. So would you do that for water? You wouldn't do that for water, would you? Would you look for SAT scores for water? You wouldn't. But education is a human right, but we do that for education. And we don't do that on purpose. It's simply that our universities cannot hold the number of people we need. We just don't have the space. Jesus College, what a fantastic location. You have to stay here. You know, we have limits on the number of people that can come on campus and study. Our classrooms are not big enough. And that's the reason why we have to do these things. And there's so many examples where we don't really believe as if education is a human right. So at edX, we are a nonprofit. You can think of it as an NGO. But as a nonprofit, our goal is, can we use technology to completely reimagine education so we can give meaning to the word education as a human right? So even the people that have access to it, imagine what kinds of access. What you see here is the Obafemi Awolowo University in Nigeria. Okay, and what you see here is not a rock concert, and that person standing there, you know, that is not Madonna. This is a classroom at the university. And my colleague David Pritchard, a physicist at MIT, likes to joke that even in a classroom, once you're beyond the fourth row, it's distance education. And so, talk about this situation. It's pretty, access is a real challenge wherever we go. So what is edX? edX is a nonprofit. We are a nonprofit learning destination. We have created a learning platform where we connect universities and professors who can teach, or who are interested in teaching online, to learners from all over the world that can come and learn. So we are a platform connecting consumers, learners, to people that can teach. We were founded by Harvard and MIT. As a nonprofit, you cannot go to VCs and raise round upon round. And building technical platforms is challenging and expensive. And so, huge kudos to MIT and Harvard. They have invested, close to $100 million in edX over the past 7 years. And that's the only reason why we've been able to be a nonprofit. And we also raise money from philanthropy, from a number of other sources. And we also have some revenue models where we believe that we can be sustainable even as a nonprofit. You see some of our partners listed on the slide, like Berkeley and Sorbonne and Oxford and Edinburgh and a number of other universities around the world that are partners that are partnered with us in reimagining education and offering quality online learning to people all over the world. Today, we have grown to 20 million unique students from 196 countries, which is all the countries in the world. We have over 2,400 courses on the platform, 140 global institutions, and millions of learners, have completed the courses and are improving their lives because of that. If you look at the Europe alone, we have close to 2.5 million learners from Europe. We have over 800,000 learners from UK. So a large number of learners everywhere. Here are some example partners from Europe that are offering content on a platform in many, many languages. Louvain has courses in French, as an example. Our partners from Russia, ITMO and Mises and others have courses in Russian. Believe it or not, our only Hindi course, embarrassingly, is from an Australian university, Australian National University. Exciting partnerships. Our platform is, again, it's a digital platform, and a couple of interesting things about the platform. One is people come and learn on the platform, and the second is that as a nonprofit, we excel in giving things away to the world for free. Nonprofits, NGOs do that. They give things away. It's a strange alien concept. And one of the things we did was early on, we gave away our platform to the whole world for free. So that free platform that we've given away, the software, our IP, we've given it away as open edX. So if tomorrow you want to launch your own competitive platform to edX, you can download open edX and set up a competitor or a partner. There are 1,800 such sites today that use open edX, including entire nations. At the University of Cambridge, the material science department uses our platform and to teach online, on campus. And there are 1,800 such sites. The other thing, as a huge nod to Larry Hedges, I realize a lot of my talk will focus on what is possible with technology, with digital technology. What can we do with education? What are we doing with education? What I haven't focused on in this talk is what are the outcomes, what are the measurable outcomes? And I'll try to highlight those in various places. Because it's a digital platform, we measure everything. We measure every single mouse click. We have terabytes and terabytes of data that we gather on our platform. And researchers, education researchers, really enjoy the data. And edX does research, our partners do research. We are partnered with a number of education departments all over the world, at Harvard, at Columbia Teachers College, Penn, Michigan, and others that are looking at the data and understanding how students learn. Our platform supports A/B testing in a generic manner so let's say you're a professor and you want to learn how to teach better. You can create multiple pathways, A, B, C, D, E pathways, and our platform automatically randomizes the learners among the various paths, and you can give them a cumulative assessment to see who did best. I mean, can you imagine? We are turning educators, professors into engineers. Now, in my book, engineer is a good thing. I'm an engineer. So what does that mean? It means that as an educator, you no longer have to give the same old lecture, year after year. You can actually begin to improve things. On the edX platform, you can say, hey, look, is it better if I give a lecture or is it better if I give a reading? Heck, you don't know the answer. Try it out. Have an A path with a lecture, have a B path with a reading, and give a common assessment. And the edX platform will automatically create an A/B test, completely transparent to the students. I remember Larry talked about, wouldn't it be cool if we could do trials that are completely transparent to the learners? So on edX, as a generic platform, simultaneously in a single course, we could be running 36 trials simultaneously. The platform supports that, makes it easy for the faculty to run such tests. And so we are working to make education constantly better. Some of our classes have hundreds of thousands of learners. There's one course on computer science. This is CS50. How many of you have heard of CS50? Some of you have. How many of you have heard of Harvard? It's a small university. Merely, I think a third the age of Cambridge on the other side of the pond. It's got 1 million students in it. I mean, can you imagine as a researcher the kind of statistical experiments you could do with 1 million students in a class and the kind of statistical significance you can get in your trials? It is phenomenal for education researchers. I'll talk more about some of the stuff in a second. Big numbers aside, to me, what keeps us all going is the individual stories. And some of the stories of learners are absolutely amazing. And just to highlight kind of the global nature of what we're doing, let me touch on some stories. So Christian is an edX learner, and he's from Germany. He did, so TUM, Technische Universität München, is one of our partners, and they have a course, they have a professional certificate program on edX in Six Sigma. So he completed that, and because of that, he secured a new job. So the people getting real outcomes from these modular micro-credentials and programs. Esther Jose, one of my favorite students, she's from India. She's from Chennai in South India. And having grown up in India myself and gone through the education system there, it was very heavily sort of rote learning based. We had to memorize a lot. I still remember, I could never remember anything. And so in poems, I would just remember the first line of a poem, and then I would make up all the stuff, and then I just, in the poem, and just remember to have the last word usually a rhyme. And because I was a reasonably good student, the teachers would only read the first sentence of my poem, and I would always get good marks in my poem. So I thought, so it's all about rote memorization. So what Esther did was that we have a large number of high school courses on our platform. High school, in the US, it's called AP, academic placement, advanced placement, high school courses. And so she took those courses, did really well, and she was really able to stand out, and she's now pursuing her higher studies in the US. The impact is global. Charles Gisso, he's from Burkina Faso. It's one of the poorest countries in the world. And he took courses in public health, and he took these courses from the Harvard School of Public Health, and was able to get a grant from Fulbright to pursue his MPH at the University of Kentucky. Again, just giving you a sampling of the kind of people from all over the world that you see on the platform. Anderson Contreras, he's from Colombia in Latin America. And so he took a course, if I remember correctly, it was the solar engineering course from Delft down the road across. The solar engineering course was very exciting to him. He took the course. And then his village had no electricity. And so you actually see this picture. He actually electrified his village following that course. Just some amazing, amazing stories. And then just yesterday, I was talking to actually, earlier this morning, I was talking to, I wouldn't want to embarrass her, I think maybe she stepped out. He was talking about how there are 60 million children. Oh, there you are. The 60 million children, I think you're a professor here, 60 million children who are mobile, moving around because of refugee status or whatever. And when you're moving around, it's very hard to get an education. The beauty is that many of these refugee camps, realizing that education is available, are offering broadband internet, or at least wireless internet services. And so here's one example. So we have a large number of refugees taking our courses on edX, and we partnered with an organization called Chiron that works with refugees. And we built partnerships with universities like Aachen and others, that once the refugees take some programs on edX, they will admit them into the university and provide credit for those programs. And I think one of my the most amazing moments was I was at Louvain a year ago, and this young student comes up to me, and he says, I was a refugee, and I did Louvain's international law program, and now he was at Louvain doing his master's. And so some of these stories are absolutely amazing as to what online technology can do in terms of increasing access. And not just increasing any old access, it's quality access. And just the Esther Jones story tells you that people are coming for getting quality and not just volume. As I said, edX has made our platform open source, and there are many nations that have adopted it. Shuetang X is a Chinese organization that has launched a Chinese national platform using Open edX. And I have 14 million learners written here, but from what I've heard, they've grown to 18 million learners, almost as big as edX. In fact, if you combine the 20 million on edX, plus the 25 million learners on all the 1,800 Open edX sites, that's a cumulative 45 million learners, making this platform the world's largest education platform today. I think it's not bad for a little nonprofit. It's not just enough to have a technical platform, a digital platform for education. There's a lot of innovation that can happen in credentialing. I think gone are the days when the only credentials we had were bachelor's degrees and master's degrees. Companies, learners are looking for micro-credentials. How do I get motivated and get credentials for smaller units of work? So we've launched a number of such modular credentials. As an example, one of the credentials we've launched is MicroMasters programs. A MicroMasters, as the name implies, is a piece of a master's degree. So you know about masters. You spend 1 to 2 years at a college and you get a master's degree. And in the US, you want a master's in social work or computer science. You come to campus, you pay on the order of $40,000, $50,000 for a 1-year master's degree. A MicroMasters is about 25% of a master's degree. So it's a modular piece. It's completely online. And we have about 50 MicroMasters on edX today. And a lot of learners don't have to leave their jobs if they're looking for work or wherever they are. They don't have to move to a different campus. They can earn these credentials completely online. So just as an example, we have a MicroMasters from MIT in data science, a MicroMasters from University of Michigan in education leadership, a MicroMasters from University of Columbia in AI. So imagine 50 cutting-edge fields, and there are MicroMasters for it, where you can learn for free. So on edX, with these courses, you learn for free. You want the credential for the MicroMasters, you pay on the order of $1,000, $1,500, which is about 1 to 2% of the cost of such a full master's degree. And we have millions of students now taking these MicroMasters programs. With that, let me segue and dream a little bit with you as to how do I see education in the future as we apply technology to education and try to be creative in policy and credentials. What might education look like in the future? And then work like mad to make it happen. All right, so let's dream about it. So one of the things that we did at edX was inspired by the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. We launched 5 Reimagine Education Goals. We call them REGs for 2022. There are 5 of them. Increasing education access, increasing education quality, modular education, omnichannel education, and lifelong education. Let me handle each of these in turn. So in terms of access and quality goals, that's been edX's founding mission. Our founding mission has been to increase access to not just any old education, but high-quality education to learners everywhere. Let me address the 3 other components: modular, omnichannel, and lifelong. So what is modular education? Modular education is one where you think of education, you divide up education into Legos. Is Bo still here? Oh, there you are. And so, if I may use your term here, instead of having monolithic education systems, how about we divide up education into modular Legos? And so the MicroMasters is an example of a Lego block. So what's unique and exciting about a Lego block? Why is a Lego block exciting? A Lego block is exciting because every single Lego block has very, very crisply defined and clear properties. Okay, if you look at Bo's Legos, each Lego has 2 little things jutting out and maybe a socket, and it'll plug into any other Lego. So the universal interfaces enables it to plug and play with anybody else. I can share Legos with my friends. I can build a small little tiger. Or what I can do is I can build up 3 tigers. I can build a bigger thing. I can build upon it. I can stack. I can build. I can compose. I can share. I can do all kinds of cool things with these Legos. I can build multicolored Legos. I can customize and do all kinds of cool things. That's the beauty of Lego. That's the beauty of modular education. So let me give you some examples of what is possible with modular education. So in edX today, education is modular. You can do a single course, earn a certificate. You can do a MicroMasters, which is about 25% of a master's degree. If you want to complete a master's after you finish your MicroMasters, you can go on and complete a full master's degree on edX. And the credits from the MicroMasters will transfer into the master's degree. So we've been very careful to define the properties, Lego-like properties of a MicroMasters. It has to be roughly 25% of a master's degree. There has to be a pathway to credit into a master's degree. It has to cost around $1,000 to $1,500. Oh, and I forgot the most important thing. Remember the well analogy? At edX, we don't deal with wells and thugs. At edX is open admissions. So for MicroMasters, open admissions, everybody's welcome. So the trick is, rather than having admissions at the start of a university, you have admissions and you let a few people in. Our thinking is have open admissions, let everybody in. It's online, so hey, come on in, let everybody in. But then you have the competencies or the exams or the tests at the end before you give the certificate. So everybody can learn something or the other. Some people get a little bit, some people get a lot. But some people learn the certificate, so you move it to the end. So that's a very simple way of looking at things. So we've defined the properties of MicroMasters, and so you can stack up and get a full master's degree if you choose to complete a master's degree. But 3 out of 4 learners on edX are telling us that they just want a MicroMasters. They don't want a full master's degree. And any number of stories of learners where people are getting promotions, jobs. In fact, I'll show you some data towards the very end. I'll hold you in suspense as to what percentage of people who earn MicroMasters have already had a career improvement in 6 months after earning the MicroMasters. You can do all kinds of other crazy things. So just think Legos. The Bo was complaining education is not fun. We are having fun. And so just think of Legos. Think of what you could do with Legos and these modular blocks. You can share. So on edX, Arizona State University launched an online master's degree in supply chain management. And they said, wait a second, MIT has a Lego called MicroMasters in Supply Chain. Why should I go and replicate that Lego? So what they did is they built a complementary Lego. They built the remaining part of the master's degree. And now they tell the students, OK, you go and take the MIT MicroMasters. You complete that, and then you can complete our stuff and get the master's degree from us. So you can see how you can do cool things. So as a university, I now only had to create a portion of the courses. I was able to leverage somebody else's. In fact, the MIT Masters in Supply Chain Management, there are 40 other universities around the world that will now accept it for credit. And where if you go to that university, you can accelerate your pathway through a master's. And we are building out the plumbing and infrastructure to build this worldwide system of credit where you should be able to complete something, a Lego here, and then a Lego there, and then bring things together in that fashion. In fact, with the Yidan Prize, this is the MicroMasters, with the Yidan Prize, we will be launching MicroBachelors. Imagine how exciting that will be. MicroBachelors are similar modular programs at the undergraduate level, where it's a piece of an undergraduate. And so imagine my dream is a world in the future, say 5, 10 years in the future, where a kid from Burkina Faso or someone in a refugee camp should be able to synthesize a bachelor's level education by composing micro-bachelors from a number of places and getting a degree from yet another place. So you can imagine some amazing, amazing shared systems like this that increase access. Here's something else that can be done with modular education. So this is an interesting story. So the IT University is a new university in Pakistan. It's in Lahore. They have a master's in computer science, and students can come in and complete the master's in computer science. They wanted to launch a master's in data science. However, they did not have the faculty to teach data science. So what they did is they have the students take 6 or 7 courses from their faculty in computer science, and then they adopt, it's edX inside. They adopt the University of California, San Diego Data Science MicroMasters on edX, and they have had the students take this completely online MicroMasters on edX. So isn't this cool? So I'm a physical location-based university in Pakistan. I have my students complete a large part of the master's on campus with my faculty, and they want a data science master's, but they don't have it. So they have the students take the MicroMasters in data science from elsewhere, and they bring it in and plug it Lego-like into their university, enabling them to launch a data science master's degree. I think all this stuff is really, really cool. And to me, it sort of presages a new world where there will be unprecedented amount of sharing between universities, where different universities will be able to give their best to the world and similarly get the best from others into their own worlds as well. The second concept I want to talk about is omnichannel learning. Omnichannel means both in-person and online. So I just like to use this cartoon where Amazon bought Whole Foods in the US, where Whole Foods is a purely organic in-person shopping complex, and Amazon, of course, is the online juggernaut, but retail is going omnichannel. Similarly, education will go omnichannel. We will have online before campus, OBC. We will have online during campus, ODC, and online after campus, OAC. This means that in the future, first of all, campuses will very much be around. A lot of people have come and told me, hey, what are you doing? Are you going to, what's going to happen to universities? I said, universities will transform themselves by adopting digital technology, and this is what's going to happen. Students in a university will come to college, and they'll be learning online, and they'll be learning on campus, and they'll be getting the best of both worlds, so that they get both the in-person connection and otherwise. In many respects, if you look at Cambridge, here I finally understood it, I think. So let's say I'm a student at Jesus College, and I have a tutor, and I work with the tutor. And I think of that as in-person. At the same time, I'm also taking classes in my department, which is University of Cambridge. So in some sense, there's sort of a two-level sort of dichotomy at Cambridge. Now, it's both in person. You can imagine a future in some university where I come to a college and I get in-person tutoring and in-person brainstorming and discussions with my colleagues or teachers, and I'm taking an online course somewhere else, much like the IT university in Pakistan did. So we'll see all kinds of new forms of sharing and innovations happening. So let me give you an example of online during campus. So at Georgia Tech, they didn't have classrooms big enough to hold their introduction to computer science class, too big. So what they did was they give students a choice. They have an online course on edX. It's their CS 1301. It's on edX. They can say, look, you can take the edX course or you can take the campus course. And by the way, in all of these experiments, researchers do studies, write papers. So you can shoot me an email. I can send you a copy of papers that have been written about this study. So that students do both. And in the study, you can go read the study. 82% of the students rated the online experience better than the campus experience. This just happens to be for this class. And today, they give students a choice. And 60% of the students, even though they're on campus and paying campus tuition, self-select to do the online class. Same thing happened at MIT. So MIT taught the online circuits course. It's a course that I happen to teach. It's a course on edX. And they give students a choice. You do the online course, it'll 100% online, not blended learning, 100% online, or do the campus class. And there are two papers out by if we Google Ann Marshall and MIT 6002X, you'll likely find the paper. And it was a study to look at how did the students fare purely online or on campus? How did they do? In fact, in one experiment, the students were even given the same exam, completely online in person, and the campus professors, where the online professors were not involved, campus professors created a common exam for campus students and online students. And the results were there's no significant difference in performance. Online students showed one whole standard deviation lower stress than by taking the campus class. So any guesses as to why the students who took the online class reported significantly less stress? Any yell out the any ideas? Why would, if you're on campus, I'm on campus and taking a fully online class, why might I have a whole standard deviation lower stress?
Because you can go at your own pace.
You can go at your own pace. Now, if you're like me, that's one example. When I was in IIT, I mean, everybody was much smarter than I was, and so I could never keep pace with the professor, and everybody was nodding their heads vigorously, and I'm saying, what the heck are you nodding your head for? I have no idea what he's saying. And in 5 minutes, the professor was gone, and I was like, lost. But online, I can hit the pause button. Isn't that cool? I can rewind as many times as I want. It's just a simple example how another reason for any other reasons why stress might be lower online. For campus students, yes.
There's less pressure on you to perform.
There's less pressure on you. No, these students were graded. These students were graded. In fact, the grade for this course went on the MIT transcript, and the MIT transcript did not say this was an online course. So there was pressure to perform. So equal pressure to perform.
You
Yes.
can engage at the time of day or time of week that works
Bingo.
best for you.
You can study when you want. So I'm not sure about you, but I'm a night person. Okay, I used to hate class at 8 a.m. in the morning. I don't know why they dragged us to class at 8 a.m. in the morning. So you want to guess what time of day are the maximal videos watched on edX? What duration of the day? Not 8 to 10 p.m. Keep going. midnight to 2 a.m. And not only the timing, but also how you do it. So the MIT students, what they did, binging is a term that you know, but binging is not associated with study. But what a lot of the students, so the researcher interviewed the students said, we are now able to binge study. Students like to study by saying, look, I dedicated all of Friday to circuits. Boom. They said, I like to binge. I guess our kids love to binge, so let them binge on education. And so they don't like this, a lot of students don't like this, 1 hour of learning, spread out through a whole week. They like to binge, boom, dedicate 1 day a week to that stuff. They were collaborating, they were working together, and there was a clear collaboration policy. So anyway, so I could go on and on and on about the benefits of combining online and in-person education on a campus. And I promise you, in 10 years, give or take a few centuries, I promise you, this kind of hybrid model where there'll be both online and in person, this will be the norm. And finally, lifelong learning. So today, education is largely, when you think of education, you think of 18 to 22. You go to college, you get admitted to college age of 18, you spend 4 years in college, and boom, you're done, and then you go. Maybe you spend a year doing a master's, and you're done. And then you go off and you study, and then you go and work for the rest of your life. Now, that used to be the case when we had a manufacturing economy, where you learned one skill, and you used the skill throughout life. But today, the world is different. Our children's generation is a different world, where new skills are needed almost every day. I was talking to Nunzio. Companies are thinking of what are the new skills the new economy needs. Things like analytics. The data science has 3 million jobs available in this world today, data science. Would you be surprised if I tell you that the phrase data science was coined in 2008? Just 11 years ago. It's the hottest field. It's the biggest search term on edX for people learning. It was coined barely 10 years ago. It's a new field. Now, my colleague Larry will argue that we just relabeled statistics, but be that as it may. And he's, and he's right, of course. But but the point is that, and there's a bit of a twist to it. There's some machine learning, and there's some programming, and but either way, it's a new field, and people want to learn this new field. And so what happens is that as technology changes how society works, we have newer and newer fields coming in. Everything will be touched by AI. A lot of schools are thinking that they need to start teaching machine learning to kids starting in first grade. Computer science has become the 4th R. Reading, writing, arithmetic, you remember? Reading, arithmetic? I like to say reading, writing, arithmetic, and programming. I couldn't find a good R for programming. So I think the new skills that need to be learned, and people will learn lifelong for the rest of their lives. And so I think the younger generation of kids coming out of college will need to become lifelong learners. And in order to do that, I don't see how you can do lifelong learning unless you do it online. If I'm 29 or 30 and I have a kid and I'm working, what are the odds I'm going to be able to go back to a nice, beautiful, wisteria-covered walls of a campus and spend 2 years? No chance on earth my family will let me do that. But I can do it online. As a university at school, because now I can engage with my alumni, not just for 4 years, I can engage with them throughout life. So it's a fantastic opportunity for universities as well to engage with their alumni. So I think lifelong learning is going to be the future. Online learning will enable it. Modular credentials will enable it. Because when you learn online and you're working, you want victories in small chunks. Okay, can I do this before my kid, I need to go burp my kid at night or something? And so everything will come in modular chunks, get small credentials, get small victories, and then stack them up. So finally, I will show you some results. So we do a lot of surveys of learners. What outcomes are we giving people? And this is not just fun stuff and access. It's also quality where people are getting real outcomes. So, so of our learners who've completed MicroMasters programs, the learners that have completed MicroMasters programs, we did a survey, 91% of them are telling us that they had a career advancement because of this credential. The advancement could be a pay raise, it could be a new job, or it could be a promotion. So with that, let me stop and promise you that the future looks very exciting and very bright. And we are very excited to work with our partners to bring digital to education. Why should digital transform every field like entertainment and communications and healthcare? Heck, we should do the same for education. So really enjoying doing that in partnership with all of our university and education partners. Thank you.
Thank you very much for a really engaging and stimulating talk. I really enjoyed that. I'm just going to offer a few reflections and pose a few questions, and then, of course, we'll turn things over to the audience to chip in with their questions as well. So edX is clearly an astonishing success story. We've got 2 world-leading institutions combining forces to support this kind of anytime, anyplace learning for everyone. I like the idea also of translating the courses into local languages and having that kind of translation, making reach greater and making contextualization greater as well. So the global reach is quite astonishing. And having your case stories was really nice of some marginalized learners making some quite significant gains and steps forward with their education and their lives even. So particularly impressive was the kind of career advancement aspect of it, that many students or learners who've completed one of these courses actually go on to achieve some career advancement or secure a job or electrify their village or whatever it is. So that's great. I particularly really like the Lego mix and match analogy, because we've had, of course, online learning, which has been modular from the Open University and other institutions for many years, but they've been institutional silos in many senses. And I think being able to take courses, supplement expertise that we don't have in one institution with courses from another is really powerful and really exciting. Demand for this kind of thing is probably going to grow because jobs are changing all the time, technology is changing, different skills are constantly going to be needed. Earlier, Anna mentioned 21st century analytic skills, and even these might be evolving, as time goes on. I'm wondering how we can extend the model. So you mentioned about, of course, the open edX and the reach of that. But actually, quite recent statistics show that most of the learners who study MOOCs already hold college degrees. And a very small percentage of them actually come from low GDP countries. The majority, like more than 2/3, come from very high GDP countries. Of course, the rest are in the middle and sort of low and middle income ones. We also know that privileged learners are more likely to complete the courses. And barriers to this have been fairly well documented. Access to technology, access to computer skills, language barriers, cultural capital, what Lucy mentioned earlier is the academic self-esteem. All these kinds of things conspire to keep marginalized learners away from online learning. Cost is one issue as well. Most MOOCs do actually cost money to enroll in. I know many of them are free too. And they're very expensive to produce. So institutions have quite an investment to make if they want to go down this line. So I guess my first question would be, what are the implications for research that's carried out by higher education institutions? Is there an impact on the funding that they might have available for their own research if they're investing in MOOC development? But also the opportunities you mentioned about large-scale samples, controlled studies that we can do are also very exciting for educational researchers. So there's 2 kind of sides of the coin there. Pedagogy is another factor, one I'm quite interested in. The traditional MOOCs, called sort of ex-MOOCs, were fairly linear in sequence, structured material, often requiring pre-course assessments, which could be quite threatening in some ways to non-traditional learners, if you like. And it's possible that they've been put off by those kinds of pedagogic structures. This quote here is from one of our faculty graduate students from a prize-winning essay he wrote, and basically making the point that course designers might actually be perpetuating inequity by adapting to the kinds of learners that are already enrolled, and that kind of style, if you like, of learning is sort of carrying on in perpetuity. But the best kind of contemporary MOOCs actually are a bit more forward-looking. They have contemporary pedagogies, they support collaborative learning, dialogue, debate, peer review, those kinds of things. So we do have different models on the table. So my question from this is, how can we reach these underserved populations in greater numbers? How can we address these obstacles? What kinds of ideas might we have to do this? And what kinds of content and pedagogy are going to scale up in a more sort of inclusive way? The more connectivist MOOCs, the more contemporary ones, pose learners pose the participants as being both teachers and learners. They're active learners. They're taking initiative. They're engaging in social media, using social media to perpetuate their learning, to share their ideas. There are multiple models out there. Distributed open collaborative courses, for example, which take a sort of feminist pedagogy perspective, where expertise is distributed throughout all of the participants. It's not residing in one or two individuals. So some questions here. I mean, we know that MOOCs are taking off big time, and your statistics have demonstrated that. What kinds of new models and innovations do we want to support? And how well might this distributed model scale up? So these are the questions I posed. I've just summarized them on one slide, just in case of memory failure by anybody. And I'd like to, first I'll give Anant a chance to answer them, if you'd like, to address any one or two of them. And then we'll open up to the floor for other people to either chip in or to raise their own questions. So thank you very much, and over to Anant.
Thank you for summarizing them on a slide. I was scrambling, taking a few notes. Let me address the question about what might be opportunities for research given a platform like this, and I really want to pose a very interesting opportunity. We like to think of edX as a huge particle accelerator for learning. So all of you have seen the one in CERN and other places where it is advancing physics by leaps and bounds, and my hope is that an open platform like edX can do the same. So here's a concrete example of something that we have done. In order to share the data, we launched something called RDX. It's called Research Data Exchange. So it's very hard to share data because, learning data for students for privacy and other reasons. But to facilitate research, what we did is that for all edX partners that opt in, they can actually share the data from all the partners. And edX works to anonymize the data. There's no perfect anonymization of data, but we do the best that we can. And then we share the data as RDX with our partners. And a shocking statistics that I just heard, the number of conferences on MOOCs and related online learning, and for the past 4 years, over 50% of those papers are now using edX data. Now there's a worry. If you make a really, really important piece of data set available, then all research suddenly charges off for using that data. But my argument is that, well, if you don't like that, then publicize your own data. So, but either way, I think that's an opportunity. The second question are, what kind of pedagogical models and innovations will be supported, and how do these models scale up? One of the things we did, if you want to Google a term called GROOC, G-R-O-O-C, it's a fun experiment. So what we did is we worked with McGill. So many of our university partners are looking to do innovations of various sorts. And because ours is an open platform, we built many ways for them to plug in their cool doodads into it. And so we worked with them, and we built the feature called Teams into edX. So now you can form groups of 3, 4, 5, up to 10, or whatever, groups of people from all over the world. They can self-select, give themselves a persona. They get a private discussion area. And McGill did an experiment called GROOC. So if you Google GROOC, you'll probably see some of the papers where you can have a course, but you can also have lots of little groups, international groups that are formed, working together and collaborating and doing group projects together. So just one example of kind of a group learning pedagogy that you might see. How might we reach underserved populations in greater numbers? So that's the one place where I think all of us could use a lot of help. Well, first of all, I do want to point out that 1.9% coming from underserved populations seems small. But don't forget, when you multiply a small number by a big number, you get quite a big number. So when you take 20 million and you multiply that by about 2%, you are talking about 400,000. So that is still a pretty big number. But that said, we want to reach many more. So far, most of our courses were sort of more advanced. With MicroBachelors and the funding from the Yidan prize, we'll be going to create more high school and MicroBachelors, undergraduate level courses. And I think that will enable people that are starting out in education to be able to have much better access. At the same time, we are very interested in working with NGOs and fellow NGOs and others around the world to create partnerships where they can help people come and learn. So in Burkina Faso, for example, there's a new institute called BIT, Burkina Faso Institute of Technology. And they're actually, they don't have a lot of teachers. They're actually using edX courses, and they send us pictures of them all sitting down learning using edX courses, and they have a tutor that helps the students. So our hope is that there'll be more organizations that will partner and use this content. At the end of the day, I'm not sure, you tell me, how do we reach people that need it most? They don't even know about this stuff. So if you have huge reach, if you have a huge reach, tell them that here's a nonprofit where you can learn, large amounts of stuff for free. Let the world know. People just don't know.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.